Behavioral Neuroscience, Chapter 13, Segment 4. Second-order hypothalamic neurons integrate appetite signals. The two hypothalamic sites appear to be primary targets for projections from the archetyl. Orogenic neurons of the lateral hypothalamus act to increase appetite and food intake. Anerogenic neurons of the paraventricular nucleus act to decrease appetite and feeding. The appetite-suppressing POMC/CART neurons of the articulate project primarily to the lateral hypothalamus. They release delta myoclonic stimulating hormone, a peptide hormone belonging to the small family of substances called melanocortins that are derived from POMC. Acting via specific melanocortin type 4 receptors located on the lateral hypothalamus neurons, delta MSH decreases the LH's appetite-stimulating activity, resulting in a net decrease in feeding. The peptide orexin, which is produced by neurons in the LH, appears to participate in the subsequent control of feeding. Other systems also play a role in hunger and satiety. Appetite signals from the hypothalamus converge on the nucleus of the solitary tract in the brainstem. The peptide cyclosolin, released by the gut after feeding, acts directly on the receptors of the vagus nerve to inhibit appetite. The endocannabinoid system is also emerging as a major regulator of appetite and feeding. Hypothalamus feeding control must be strongly influenced by inputs from higher brain centers. Obesity is difficult to treat. Our evolutionary history has optimized our bodies for obtaining and storing energy and protecting against accumulating too much energy. Epigenetic transmission is the passage of epigenetic modifications of a gene from one generation to another. Appetite control. The alteration of leptin signals has not proven to be an effective strategy. Only a tiny minority of obese people have abnormal leptin levels, and most have higher levels of circulating leptin than thin people do. Leptin regulates endogenous cannabinoid levels in the hypothalamus. Drugs that are cannabinoid antagonists might effectively suppress appetite by causing anti-munchies. Increased metabolism. Treatments that cause the body's metabolic rate to increase and thus suspend extra calories in the form of heat. The treatment to increase the activity of mitochondrion-rich brown fat, which burns energy to generate the heat. Inhibition of fat tissue. Interfering with the formation of new fat tissue. The blockade of one type of receptor for vascular endothelial growth factor, a signaling protein that normally stimulates angiogenesis. Reduced absorption. One of the only approved obesity medications, Oralstat, works by interfering with the digestion of fat. It's produced modest weight loss and causes intestinal discomfort. Reduced reward. Drugs that affect the brain's reward circuitry, reducing the reward properties of food, may provide beneficial for weight loss. Anti-obesity surgeries. The surgical removal of fat tissue, called liposuction, is only moderately successful and temporary. Bariatric procedures that bypass part of the intestinal tract or stomach in order to reduce the volume and absorption capacity of the digestive system. It does not control mechanisms. Alterations in appetite hormones such as ghrelin accompany the surgery. Box 13.2. The body seems to know how much it wants to weigh, and it defies our efforts to change the value. Eating disorders are life-threatening. Anorexia nervosa, the patients have no appetite, and the disorder originates in the nervous system. People tend to think about food as a good deal, and they respond even more than normal subjects to the presentation of food. The observation of angin-regulated peptide levels in abnormal women with anorexia suggests that the hypothalamic appetite system may be abnormal. Difficult to treat because it appears to involve an unfortunate combination of genetics, endocrine, personality, cognitive, and environmental variables. Family-based treatment is a treatment that works. It's therapy that de-emphasizes the identification of causal factors and instead focuses on intense parent-led refeeding of the anorexic person. Bulimia. With bulimia, people may believe themselves to be fatter than they are. They periodically gorge themselves, usually with junk food, and then either vomit or take laxatives to avoid weight gain. Binge eating. People spontaneously gorge themselves on far more food than is required to satisfy hunger, often to the point of illness. People are obese and the mutation of the gene encoding in the MC4R receptor is also associated with binge eating. The origins of these disorders remain elusive, and the availability to help only a majority of patients. The cutting edge, a rambling in the belly. You contain about 2.5 to 5 pounds of gut microbes, which is trillions of individual bacteria belonging to dozens of different species, making up more than half the contents of your large intestines. It's called normal gut flora. Each person possesses a bacterial enterotype, which is a personal combination of different species of normal flora. This reflects your dietary history. Disease processes and infections in the gut may alter the balance of the flora and/or allow a pathogen to take root. Fecal transplantation is a medical procedure in which feces are collected from carefully screened donors, processed to create liquid suspension, and then passed through a catheter into a large intestine and colon of the recipient. Just one transplant can cure dangerous intestinal infections with bacteria, and it has effectively reversed insulin sensitivity in obese men.